I've seen many videos, posts, and even some people in my own comment section saying that power scaling is stupid and cringe. And you know what? If you also believe that, then I'm here to tell you that you're wrong. Okay, that was an over-exaggeration, but I am here to talk about why I think some of these views come from a misunderstanding of the hobby as well as just bad actors within the space. To do this, I went around online and found some of the most popular points against power scaling, and to be fair, the video from Big and Stuff on why power scaling is cringe is a main factor for the creation of this video, so this video is kind of a response to that video. Disclaimer that there is no hate to Big and Stuff. Even though I disagree, I think he's not a malicious person, and in fact, you should go subscribe to him with the link in the description. Also, before we get into it, please make sure to like and subscribe. It would mean everything to me. But with that out the way, let's jump right into it.
There's nothing wrong with occasionally shooting the shit with a buddy on a long car ride, but some of you guys, you take it too far. I'm referring specifically to the practice of power scaling.
Power scaling is a bit deeper in the conversation of who would win compared to a casual shooting the shit conversation, but I think it's a little more than that. At its most fundamental, power scaling is nothing more than a hobby which aims to mix science, collaboration, and engagement in the shows we love to try our best to find as objective of an answer as possible to who would win a fight. You could say that power scalers take it too far, but that's just how we choose to engage in the media we love. To levy this criticism at power scalers, the same criticism could be given to anyone who chooses to engage with media they love in their own ways, such as artists who draw characters from shows or writers who continue or alter the story in what-if scenarios in very elaborate and detailed ways. Are they taking it too far when they could just be shooting the shit with a friend instead?
It basically entails taking a fictional character, figuring out all of the most impressive things they've ever done.
This is where I'll agree with Big and Stuff, but this is more of a reform that needs to happen within the community rather than an issue with power scaling itself. I believe that to uphold the integrity of power scaling, we can't just look at the strongest or most powerful thing a character does, calc it, and label the character with it. Instead, there needs to be reflection on the story and perhaps even a sanity check to see if the story is implying whether they are at that level. For a strong example of this is when pre-awakened Maki was able to catch a bullet centimeters from her face, which would have made her hypersonic. But later in the series, we see that a stronger Maki was only able to move at Mach 3. There is a clear difference in what was calculated and what the author is trying to tell us, echoed by Gege himself in a statement. Therefore, to uphold integrity, we should view catching the bullet feat as an outlier and neglect it due to it not fitting what the story is trying to tell us these characters' baselines are.
Authors don't care about power scaling. No one writes with this stuff in mind. When a writer is constructing a scene, their priority and main focus is going to be on developing the characters. The concern is almost never going to be, how can I write this in such a way as to facilitate consistency and comparison of my character with those of another author?
This is correct, that authors do not do mathematics and calculations when writing a story to make sure that everything lines up perfectly with what they think the character should be able to do. That being said, authors, or at least the good ones, do have a baseline for what characters should be able to do. This is within the nature of writing itself. For example, authors and even us as an audience don't casually know how strong Spider-Man is pound for pound, but we have a rough idea that he can lift tens to hundreds of times his own weight. This is why he can support buildings, stop trains, or whatever. But it would be really shocking to us as an audience and what we would normally call plot armor if Spider-Man was somehow able to, let's say, lift a planet in order to get out of a situation. We don't need to be rocket scientists or neck-bearded nerds to know the magnitudes of difference between what we know he can do and this new feat. So naturally, a good author would have Spider-Man dealing with situations that more align with those types of problems, which is why he is the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man and not the friendly galactic Spider-Man. This also fits with when he says,
And a lot of writers, even very skilled ones, will display some degree of inconsistency even when comparing characters within the same series or the same character between different scenes.
yes, authors do have inconsistencies, but they do stick around their baselines for the strength of a character. As said in the previous point, the job of a power scaler is to find a baseline or average for those feats that correlate to the storytelling. If a power scaler was to somehow find a value which would make Spider-Man able to lift a planet, it should be labeled as an outlier because it doesn't fit the narrative.
Let alone having to scale it properly with everyone else's completely separate imaginary worlds and characters that operate on totally different rule sets.
Fortunately, we don't really have to worry about that because we assume that every story, unless stated otherwise, follows the same rules of physics as we do in the real world. This allows for consistent scaling from all stories and using known mathematics. We can change constants such as gravity, density, or whatnot based on the evidence given from the story. If he means things like energy systems, such as the difference between ki and nen, that is usually taken into account when scaling the series and can either be lumped into the same system or treated as separate systems, and their rules should be followed strictly, but this all depends on the type of conversation that is being had.
People want their favorite guy to win. Human beings are inherently biased creatures, it's just a fact of life. So when it comes to power scaling, the most popular characters tend to have the largest, staunchest defense squad ready to come out of the woodwork to provide any and every feat possible to ensure that they always come out on top no matter what.
Yes, humans will in fact be humans, but this is not a power scaling problem. Like I said, this is a human problem. Every human is biased, and we're even biased in things that are more mundane or even boring. We are very emotional creatures and we become very invested, and this is accounted for in real-world academic research. This is why in research we take high precautions to limit bias in our work for more objective results and analysis. Anyone who power scales needs to keep this in mind to attempt to remain as unbiased and objective as possible if they want to keep any semblance of their credibility and professionalism. This doesn't make power scaling bad, this just means to double check who you are listening to. And for those who defend outrageous matchups with their life, even though it doesn't make any sense, we call those individuals delusional and perhaps in need of more real-world socialization.
Strength doesn't really matter. I mean, genuinely, whether one character can beat another in a fight has absolutely nothing to do with how good of a character they are.
Okay, this is probably the first thing I'm gonna say that's actually mean, but the rest of the video is kind of pointless. I say this because I don't understand where this sentiment comes from. Power scaling isn't the art of finding the best character. It is the art of analysis and comparison of strength and abilities, not of character. Just because Superman can kill Meruem, Naruto, or Omni-Man doesn't make me like those shows any less or like Superman anymore. It's just, well, fun. We do it out of intrigue, curiosity, or hell, even sometimes boredom. That statement is a very pragmatic way of viewing the world and a how does this benefit type of argument. Why do we watch movies or shows in the first place when there's literally a million better things we could do? Why play video games? Why enjoy the seemingly worthless things? Well, because life isn't about why we do something, but about what it does for us. I'd argue power scaling has built a community of like-minded individuals, regardless of how insane and low-key loserish they might be. They allow for a fun way to practice analysis, story interpretation, math and science, and so many things while consuming the media we enjoy in the first place. But at the end of the day, if nothing else, it just gives something to do and people to talk to. Now, just to give some valid arguments from the other side, here are two main ones I agree with and I think need serious work done if power scalers want this negative stigma removed. First, the easy one is in the same story power scaling, I think mathematics and science takes a backseat to narrative interpretation. I don't care what value you're able to dig up for Kakuzu. It could be the highest value in the series, but in terms of narrative, Kakuzu is weaker than Pain. This is essentially my way of saying that story/narrative is king for same story scaling. But the real criticism, and the one that upsets me personally, is how toxic and confirmation biased the community is. The space has gotten very heated with people who, as mentioned previously, have no sense of integrity and just want their favorite characters to win, or for them to be right. We see these losers in just about every versus battle comment section. These spaces should be more fun, more inviting, and more sociable, with conversation and analysis being done in a more friendly manner than always needing to shout at each other over who is right. I love a good old debate, but debate should be done more amicably rather than combatively. And limiting the confirmation biases or choosing to listen to power scalers who are less biased over those who aren't is always going to be beneficial, not only for power scaling, but for everything in life.
One question I'm always asked: who would win in a fight? And there's one answer to all of that. The person who'd win in a fight is the person that the scriptwriter wants to win. These are fictitious characters. The writer can do whatever he wants with them.
Just to address this now so I don't have to argue about this in the comments section, you can bring out this clip all you want to try and prove that authors don't give a fuck about power scaling or who would win. But as mentioned earlier, they would be a really bad writer if for no reason at all, no plot armor, no power up, no nothing, Kid Goku comes up and beats up Superman Prime with ease. We'd all feel cheated and it would be stupid. There can be a reason why he'd possibly win, like, I don't know, they were fighting in a location where the sun was a red sun, so Superman had no powers, but that's clearly an example of the author understanding baselines and writing accordingly. But all else being normal, it's just not happening, and we'd be mad at any writer who would just do that willy-nilly. I don't watch Boruto, but I remember the hate when Urashika, who is essentially a member of an alien/god race that traveled back in time and somehow lost to Kid Naruto. The author wrote it and he had the outcome happen. Why didn't the entirety of the audience like it if the author can essentially do whatever they want? Well, it's because the reality is that a good author won't do whatever they want. They have rules set out for their story and baselines for their characters, which they need to follow, at least somewhat, to maintain continuity. That's the end of my rant, and I hope I was able to sway some of you into understanding what power scaling is, and that at its core, it's not so bad. Are there bad actors? Yes. Are there problems within the community? Absolutely. But is the practice itself bad? Well, if done correctly, with care and collaboration, it doesn't have to be. It's just another way to appreciate the media we love, to engage with it in a different way, and even combine communities from different stories together. There are some things that I think need fixing, but at the end of the day, I personally think it's fun and thought-provoking, and I hope you've come to agree with me. That's all I have for you today, and don't forget to subscribe to Big and Stuff. Again, no hate, I'm sure he's real cool, but if you enjoyed, please make sure to like and subscribe, as it would really mean a lot. And with all that out the way, I hope you all have a great day, and peace out.